Welcome everyone to RAF's Worldwide Rally Against Trophy Hunting. This is the 4th consecutive year we've held this event in Birmingham, and this is the first year that we're actually marching. It's usually a static event, but everybody voted for a march this year, so we're marching. We're not only marching against trophy hunting that happens abroad, we're actually marching against the Great British Shooting Show as well, which is trophy hunting wildlife in Britain. So we're actually marching against blood sports in this country as well. We've got Mark, who's got the vegan stand. If anybody's interested in learning about becoming vegan or interested in getting involved in animal rights, you can speak to Mark on the corner. We've got Yvonne doing the face painting, and she's also accepting donations for the hunt sabs, who are currently in the field as we speak, on the front line, putting their lives at risk, protecting wildlife. So really appreciate a donation, even if the minimum of £1, please, if that's okay with everyone. They absolutely deserve it. So the first speaker we've got on today is Emily from League Against Cruel Sports.
Thank you, thanks very much. It's great to see everybody again, and thank you, Jenny, for another good march. I hope we're going to have the dancing at the end again, like we did last year. Since speaking to you last, we are still continuing the work that we're doing with Bedfordshire Against Trophy Hunting, who are exposing the trophy hunting that's happening at Woburn Deer Park. So hunters come from abroad. Is that better? Yeah. Hunters come from abroad, and they pay up to £25,000 to kill one of their stags. Even £600 for a Soay sheep, and even wallabies are on offer at Woburn Park, which is right next to the Safari Park and owned by the Duke of Bedford. We've been currently writing to the Duke of Bedford with Bedfordshire Against Trophy Hunting to ask him to end this cruel practice, but he is still calling it some form of deer management. Obviously this is not the case. It's exploitation of the animals, and you can't guarantee clean shots. They could be suffering. So we're going to continue doing that in the summer. We're planning another demo at Woburn if anybody wants to join us. And you can actually take action even if you can't come to a demo. Please pick up one of these leaflets. On the back it tells you how you can take action and join us. The other thing I'd like to quickly mention is this year we're hoping there'll be another vote at the National Trust AGM in Swindon. So if you are a National Trust member, please have a look out for your AGM packs, which will be coming through, and there hopefully will be a vote on trail hunting. We're going to try to stop those licences being issued for hunts. So please tell all National Trust members that you know to keep an eye out, and then hopefully there will be a vote this year, and we want that stopped as well. Thanks very much, and I think it's Nigel Tolley next, from representing the Badger Trust for local badgering. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Emily. Badger Trust. It's not only Badger Trust that we do. Yesterday we were out in the fields sabbing, stuck in the middle of a hunt. And can I just say, before I say anything, the sabs are out there today doing an absolutely fantastic job, but we're out every day of the week. Hunting isn't just Saturdays, it's every day of the week. And we need as many people out there as possible. Right, it's got to be quick, I know. What is trophy hunting? I looked at the definition of it the other day, and it says the killing of an animal for leisure or sport, and the removing of a body part as a trophy or as a souvenir. Who the bloody hell does that? What sick idiots do that? To kill a sentient being? But they're no different to us. Every animal is the same as us. We're born, we've got brains, and to go along and kill another sentient being is absolutely hideous. But that's what they do. You know, I like it. I think it's very similar to paedophiles. We can't understand what goes on in their brain. You know, it just doesn't comprehend to me, and I'm sure it doesn't comprehend to any of you. It's the same as paedophilia doesn't. But that's in their brains. It's sick. It really is sick. I can remember when I was a young child, 5 or 6 years old, my uncle used to go out with a hunt. We used to visit my grandparents on a Sunday, and he used to live with my grandparents. And he used to be bragging when we arrived there on a Sunday afternoon, and showed me the tail of a fox. He'd got a collection across the fireplace of the bushes of foxes. That was the trophy. This trophy hunting has always gone on. And I felt sick every time. I mean, even at 5 or 6 years old, I couldn't comprehend it. That led, actually, he took us to a hunt in Hagley, and I was probably, as I say, 5 or 6 years old, with my parents, and he introduced us, or introduced my parents, to the master of the hunt. I was livid just being there, and say this is only 5 or 6 years old, and he was going to mount his horse, and he put his glass of sherry down by the side. I wrenched myself from my mother's hand and went up and kicked his glass of sherry flying. And I think that was probably my first ever introduction to sabbing. My mother quickly grabbed my arm and had to go and stand at the back somewhere. But even in those days, I just couldn't. 5 or 6 years old, I couldn't comprehend it. Really and truly, that leads me then to the badger call. Now, these shooters that go out there, we're out there, as you appreciate, every year, and the cull now goes on for 9 months of the year, and it's going to be covering basically the whole of the country sooner or later. We're still waiting for the release of the kills from last year, which is expected to be about 40,000. 40,000 for no reason. We've had the cull now for 7 years, and bovine TB in cattle has gone up in all the areas. But again, it's all connected to trophy hunting. You find the shooters that are going out there for the badger cull are the same guys that are on the back of horses killing foxes during the hunting season. And they get paid for it, but they're not going out there for the money. They're going out there for the thrill of killing badgers. It's the thrill. It's becoming now that the cull is becoming the shooting season for badgers. The same as we've got a hunting season, we've now got a shooting season for badgers. That's what it's becoming. The only difference is it's a protected species, and you have to have a license to shoot them, which are readily available, and they actually get paid for it. Absolutely bloody absurd. Anyway, yeah, anybody that isn't at the moment that would like to get out there for the cull season, please come and have a word with me. Worcestershire is bound to come into the cull this year. The cull company was formed 3 years ago. They were livid last year that they didn't get a license, but there'll be another 10 licenses given out this year, and Worcestershire is bound to be in it. And that could mean, well, it'll mean tens of thousands quite easily being killed just in our area. So please, if you can get out, come and see me. Have a look on Facebook, Worcestershire Against the Badger Cull. Message me, message from there if you want to get out there. Be good to see more out there. We're out there at the moment. I mean, it's nice, and it's a nice, relaxing atmosphere at the moment. Get out there, just set surveying, getting out there, looking for badger sets. It's a relaxing. It keeps you fit. Anyway, I know we're limited on time today, so be good to see you out in the fields in the future. Thanks very much.
Now we've got Jane from Animal Welfare Party.
Can everyone hear me okay? I think even when you spend your whole working life defending animals' rights, for me there's something particularly appalling about trophy hunting. It might be possibly because the cruelty isn't so much hidden inside a system such as factory farming, and there's no getting away from the fact that individual people kill these incredible animals for fun. Obviously, as has been mentioned already, these individuals are sick. They've imbibed and are playing out a fantasy that's rooted in untruth and injustice. A fantasy that they have dominion over other species so they can kill them with impunity. And the trophies, of course, are proof of their so-called status and their so-called skill. In my opinion, trophy hunting men and women need urgent psychological treatment. They're a danger to the world, aren't they? But they must be in pain to do what they do. However, those people are not our concern, are they? Our concern is the animals. How can the number of lions killed by trophy hunters have actually gone up since the death of Cecil and the outrage that that caused? How can 10,000 lion trophies have been taken in the past decade when there are only 20,000 lions left in the wild? A lot of this stuff really beggars belief, doesn't it? This week, one of the beloved big tusker elephants, Tim, died, aged 50, thankfully of natural causes. Let's take a moment to remember him and to honour the role that these wise elephant elders play in their communities. They have a special place in the hearts not only of their elephant families, but in the hearts of people like us all over the world. And yet, elephants are also trophy hunted. I can hardly think of anything more shocking than that. Trophy hunting is also painful to think about because it involves magnificent species that we hold in the utmost awe and respect. And campaigning against trophy hunting, it makes us stare into an abyss of cruelty towards iconic animals who for us really represent freedom and the sheer wonder of the natural world. Campaigning against something like trophy hunting makes despair and hope contend for space with each other in our hearts. That's why it's difficult, but it's also why it's so important to get it banned. And make no mistake, we will win this. Trophy hunting imports will be banned, and then trophy hunting itself will be banned, sooner rather than later. It will happen, and we're on the right side of history. But there's even more to do. The writer, Victor Hugo, said that to destroy abuses isn't enough. Habits must be changed. Trophy hunting is an abuse of the most appalling kind, but the habits behind it need to be changed too. Many humans still have the habit of thinking that as a species we have some kind of natural dominion or mastery over other animals. We don't, even if we're staring down the scope of a gun or aiming a crossbow at an animal. We just don't. Many humans have lost the habit of humility, and that also needs to come back to us. We're not, after all, the biggest, or the bravest, or the fastest, or the strongest animal on the block. Other animals are. And we also have to seriously question, don't we, how we can possibly think of ourselves as the smartest species when we're the ones who are rapidly making the entire planet uninhabitable for everything. Trophy hunting is a huge industry, rich and powerful, but let's not be daunted by that. Look at what these people get up to. They're wildlife criminals, pure and simple, and we answer to a higher law. We need to make our higher law the actual law. They're hugely in the wrong, and we're in the right. That's why we'll win, and we'll win without big money, without guns, without big international conventions featuring the stupid Beach Boys minus Brian Wilson, and without paying corrupt governments. We'll win this because we're right. Trophy hunting is an abomination that has no place at all in a civilized world. We'll win this for the lions, and I don't know if you've noticed, but they're watching us up there, lovely stone lion. We'll win it for the leopards, the elephants, the buffalo, the foxes, and all the others. You people standing in Birmingham today, in solidarity with wild animals all over the world, are amazing. So keep going, everyone, and let's get trophy hunting banned everywhere and forever.
Next we have Dominic Dyer, speaking on behalf of Born Free.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Let's just have a round of applause for Jenny, because I know how much hard work has gone into organising this today. And I'm speaking on behalf of Born Free and the Badger Trust, two charities that I work for, that I'm very proud to work for. And it's really good to be back here in Birmingham, our second largest city, with such a wonderful crowd of caring, compassionate people who want to put a stop to the exploitation and the greed and stupidity that is killing the wildlife of this world. Wouldn't you agree? Let's just talk about trophy hunting for a moment. Nearly 5 years ago now, I was touring the media studios, the immediate aftermath of that dentist from Minnesota that decided he wanted to kill a lion in Hawangi National Park, Cecil the lion. What that particular incident did was bring to the world's attention the horror of trophy hunting. Yes, that lion was a collared lion as part of an Oxford research project. Yes, Walter Palmer had basically shot that lion with a bow and wounded it. That lion then went off into the bush for nearly 8 hours to be finished with a gun. You can imagine the pain and suffering of that animal. That animal was a mature lion that had generated millions and millions of dollars for the Zimbabwe tourist industry. And it was killed in this horrific way by this stupid, ignorant, greedy dentist that is basically a good example of the sort of people that want to kill wildlife for so-called trophy hunting. Do any of you think that's right?
No!
Well, the horror of Cecil the lion, I'm afraid, has largely dissipated in the mind of the world over the last 5 years. We've had many other things on our mind, from Brexit and President Trump and climate change and everything else. But let's be clear, the trophy hunting industry continues to grow. The numbers of lions incarcerated in a conveyor belt of cruelty in South Africa in the so-called canned hunting operations is now in its thousands. There's a corrupt system from the ANC government to the Afrikaan farmers who regulate and control all this mess just to make money. Thousands and thousands of lions are being shot to order, and throughout their life they're exploited. The so-called lion petting projects that you can go on as tourists, where you don't ask questions, where you can feed the lion cubs, and you spend thousands of dollars for the privilege. The so-called walking with lion projects, where you can walk with semi-adult lions, again spending a lot of your tourist dollars for the privilege. And then finally, when the lion gets to a mature age, it's incarcerated in an area where it's then brought out with meat hung off a tree to be shot at by someone who's probably had a day's practice at best of using a gun and often wounds the animal, and someone who's more skilled as a marksman has to finish it off next to it. And then they take the skin, or they take the head and they take it back to Dallas, or they take it back to Seoul, or they take it back to London to put on their wall. They're not asking about what happens to the bones and the carcass. Even that has a market, that has a value. Now the South African government are allowing the regulated trade of lion bones into Southeast Asia. Vietnam, Laos, China, which feeds this medicine trade, that then feeds, as Jane has said, the destruction of what's left of Africa's wild lions. Probably 25,000 is all that's left across the whole continent of Africa. So if any trophy hunter, and I have this a lot when you go on radio or television and talk about this, they always say, well, there's an ecological benefit, there's an economic benefit, there's even big NGOs, wildlife conservation NGOs that support this. But that just doesn't stack up. Most of the money from trophy hunting, the likes of Walter Palmer paying to kill Cecil the lion, is not going to local communities, it's not going to the ecological benefit of certain areas of Africa. It's going into safari companies' hands. It's going into the hands of corrupt government officials, and it's just destroying wildlife at an unprecedented rate. There is no justification at all for killing some of the rarest, most endangered species on this planet just because you've got a lot of money in your pocket. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
It's a disgrace. And yes, we've got a debate in this country about just stopping the import of these trophies and the export. Well, that shouldn't be a debate at all. We don't need a bloody consultation. Let's just stop it. It's insane.
Yeah.
It has to stop now. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
Yes, come on, Boris Johnson. Pull your finger out. Just ban the bloody stuff. But that's not just about the wildlife around Africa. It's also the wildlife in this country that's under threat as well. And credit to people like Emily Lawrence, the League Against Cruel Sports, and other campaign groups that have been basically picketing outside Woburn Safari Park, that have been saying, listen, it's not acceptable to breed rare species of deer for the gun for commercial operations in this country or anywhere else in the world. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
You shouldn't be able to kill European bison in Scotland. You shouldn't be able to kill stags in Scotland. You shouldn't be able to kill rare species of deer at Woburn. You shouldn't be able to go to remote Scottish islands like certain American trophy hunters do to kill deer, to kill sheep, to kill goats. Wouldn't you agree? Yes. If you're going to stop trophy hunting in Africa, you damn well stop it in Britain as well. It's a disgrace. And that's the issue here. The war on wildlife isn't just a global fight, it's a fight at home as well. We have the biggest fight on our hands to protect what's left of our wildlife in this country. It could be foxes, it could be badgers, it could be birds of prey, it could even be species like beavers and otters that we're reintroducing to our countryside, all of which are under threat from developers, landowners, farmers, hunters, and just basically maniacs who want to kill and maim animals. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
And we've got to fight it every single day, and all credit, let's give a round of applause for the hunt monitors and the hunt sabs and all those people on the front line who are fighting that battle day in, day out, in the cold, in the wet, with no thanks, but they do it because they care. Because if it wasn't for them, the situation would be far worse than it is today. And I've got to talk about badgers, because Nigel's absolutely right, you know. Killing badgers is almost like an NFU-funded trophy hunting programme as far as I'm concerned. We're waiting on the government now to announce the badger cull figures. They've delayed since December when they usually announce, because there's a big battle going on in government and a big battle going on in Whitehall about what's going to go on with this train wreck of a policy. But we expect in 2019 that over 40,000 badgers were killed within 6 weeks. That's the biggest destruction of a protected species in the history of this nation. Do any of you think that's acceptable?
No.
And we're pushing these animals as a result to the verge of local extinction in parts of this country where they have lived since the Ice Age. Since the Ice Age, and we have the largest population of badgers anywhere in Northern Europe. Farmers say to me, we're being overrun by them. Why are you worried, Dominic? You're just exaggerating. No, we are not. We know for a fact there are parts of the country now where we see very few roadkill badgers. The first sign, just as we found with hedgehogs, when the roadkill disappears, you know the animals are in trouble, and they are in real trouble. And we know it's not just badger culling. We probably lose 50,000 badgers a year on the roads. We lose thousands to developers, and we lose thousands to badger baiters and to wildlife maniacs that some of you might have seen reported in the Lincolnshire Press this week, with a lady out with her dogs that came across both badgers and foxes that had been skinned and mutilated. So not only were they killed, the person that left them there wanted to prove a point. Now I'm afraid the person that did that's not just dangerous to animals, they're dangerous to humans as well. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
This is a disgrace. And we have to find an end to it. And we can find an end to it. But I'm afraid the National Farmers Union thinks it runs this government. It thinks it can kill any wild animal it wants that gets in the way of its farming systems. And let's be clear about those farming systems. They've got to change. It's not just me saying that. If you look at the former DEFRA chief scientist, Ian Boyd, the very architect of this policy, is now out of DEFRA. He's now turned vegan, and he's saying that livestock farmers should give up and start rewilding their land. Not only that, he's going to come to the Badger Trust Symposium in November, and he's going to say that as well. We know this policy is in trouble. We know this policy is in trouble because on April Fool's Day, the National Farmers Union are taking a judicial review against the government, who decided last year not to issue a licence for badger culling in Derbyshire. They're dragging the partner of the Prime Minister into that, because I had the audacity, as far as they're concerned, to go into Downing Street to meet with her, who then spoke to Boris Johnson, who made sure that he knew the concerns we had, and hopefully when he took a decision, it was influenced by those concerns. They say that's wrong. I say that's completely legitimate. We have a right to influence anyone we choose to, just as they do. And I'm really grateful because if Prime Minister Boris Johnson stays in Downing Street, which he might for 10 years, that he might have a partner beside him that actually does care about animal rights, has been out on marches for whales and other species, and does actually think this is wrong. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
And they have no right to silence her, as they have no right to silence you or any of us. Anyone, including the partner of the Prime Minister, has a right to speak up for the welfare of animals and wildlife in this country, and they shouldn't be silenced. And if it has to go to a court, and if that has to set a legal precedent that they have an opinion and they're entitled to it, so be it. Because we'll fight the NFU in the courts. We will not allow you to run this government and destroy our wildlife to keep your dirty, inefficient farming systems running when we know there's a massive decline in meat and dairy consumption in this country. We know that those systems are feeding climate change anyway, and they have to change. We want to help farmers change. We want to protect our wildlife, and we want to use our taxpayers' money efficiently. We are in a war on wildlife, but we'll win it because we're caring and compassionate. We'll win it because we're right. We'll win it because this country, despite we have many differences, we care deeply about animal welfare and wildlife protection. That's why the debates about foxes and the debates about badgers and trophy hunting become such big discussions in this country. I'll just leave you one thought. Boxing Day, you'll remember a certain leading QC decided he was going to club a box to death and then boast about it on Twitter. In most other countries, that wouldn't have even got a rumour and interest anywhere. In this country, it sent social media insane. It led the front pages of the newspapers for 3 days. And I think what it showed was that not only he was arrogant and stupid and cruel, but people in this country won't put up with that horror, won't put up with that type of behaviour, and we make a stand. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
And that's what makes Britain great, despite our differences. That's why we're here today. That's why we will keep marching and keep fighting for wildlife. And that's why ultimately, because of all the greed, ignorance and stupidity that leads to the destruction of wildlife in this world, the moral case, the care and compassion will win. Thank you very much.
So are you ready to march now?
Yes.
So bloody right.